Irvingman, watches shows sitting on his can. Tells a story, tells a joke, monetizes cause he's broke. Look out, here comes the Irvingman.
Peter Parker is in Jonah Jameson's office, where JJJ is explaining to Peter that the only thing he can do with money is spend it, which is a bit of a duh, but his goal is to get Peter to not want Jonah to give him any.
What's that?
The sky is covered with birds.
I control the sky. Run, you fools, run!
I have immense power. I use it to posture in front of windows at the Daily Bugle.
Quick, Miss Grant, close the window. Parker, get out there and get some pictures. Now, where did he run off to?
Let's go with he went to do what you told him to do. And if he was still there, Jonah would be all over him for standing around. We know how this works.
How can the Vulture control all those birds?
With my sonic device, all flying things are hypnotized into doing my bidding.
Good grief, he heard him. And gooder grief, he answered him. He turns a knob on his helmet and the birds react. So all Spider-Man has to do is give him a good solid bonk on the head and break a few things, and that's that. Good to know.
Wow! What happened to you?
I fell out of an airplane, okay?
Well, okay, it wasn't exactly a plane, but it did have wings. Speaking of whom, he went off to City Hall to make his demands.
Mr. Mayor, it would be ridiculous to give in to that Birdman.
Vulture Man demands $2 million. He must have flipped his feathers.
Never mind, Parker. I want you to get pictures of the damage caused by Spider-Man.
Mr. Jameson, it was the Vulture Man who
was obviously working in league with Spider-Man.
This was one of the few things I didn't like about this show. In the comics, JJ had a mat on for Spider-Man, it's true, but he only rarely went off the rails like this. Here he does it most every week. No matter what happens, somehow it's Spider-Man's fault. It tends to be so over the top, it's hard to keep suspending disbelief. Now granted, in 1963, in Amazing Spider-Man number 10, Jonah quietly admitted to himself that he was envious of Spider-Man, jealous of the way he does things for people without ever asking for any kind of reward. JJJ admits that he spent his whole life making money for himself and hasn't ever really cared about other people. This guy comes along, altruistic to the max, and exposes all of JJ's selfishness and callousness. More stuff has been added over the years as the character has been retconned, revamped, folded, spindled, and mutilated, and that's okay because even at the time I thought this was lame. So did a lot of other people because readers blew up the letters page for the next several issues complaining about it. But for better or for worse, there it was, and since this show came along after that and before any retconning, that's what we have to work with. Not that it's ever mentioned in the show. Here it doesn't matter why he hates the guy so much, he just does. So just go with it.
Extra! Mayor refuses to pay Vulture. Extra! Read all about it.
Refuse my demands. I'll make them regret that decision.
$2 million does seem like a lot when your primary weapon is a flock of birds. Then again, it worked for Alfred Hitchcock, so who knows? I hope those don't come down near any people because they're glowing red hot. I also have a feeling they should have melted right through that webbing, but maybe Peter uses asbestos in it. That was still a thing in 1967. Construction crews heat those rivets up super hot so they're nice and soft. Then they use their rivet guns to put them in place, and when they cool, they form a good, solid connection. That thing they were in is called a hod. When I was about 9, my brother-in-law was talking about a friend of his who worked carrying one of those from point A to point B. Needless to say, the job is called a hod carrier. Remember, I'm under 10 and have no idea what any of this stuff is. But when I heard him talk about the super hot rivets and his friend worked as a hot carrier, I busted out laughing. None of the adults could figure out why, and I couldn't figure out why they didn't find it funny.
One thing I hate, it's a smart aleck. I don't even need my birds to help me.
That's all it took to do that? Next time, buy girders made out of steel, not silly putty.
It wasn't Spider-Man who destroyed the building.
I'll bet my credit cards that those two are working together, or my name isn't J. Jonah Jameson.
Few people knew that his real name is Pierpont McGillicuddy.
But the window cleaners have refused to wash the windows. They're afraid of the Vulture Man.
What do you mean they won't wash the windows?
That gives me an idea.
Now I'm waiting for Jonah to write a huge banner headline screaming that Spider-Man attacked him with a squeegee.
Well, I hope the Vulture Man gets here before I get dishpan hands.
Presumably that's part of the reason you're wearing gloves, Peter.
Doesn't that fool realize he's defying my orders?
For a lovelier you.
I thought that would short out his bird control thingy, but it looks like he made it waterproof. And don't worry about Spider-Man, a simple web net, a couple of bounces, and he's safely on a rooftop. So let's see, we know 2 ingredients in his web formula now, asbestos and elastic. I wonder what else is in that stuff.
And now for my second example of fantastic flippancy.
You bug me enough, you boorish boob. Just wait till my birds get through with you.
He doesn't have enough webbing to deal with several hundred attacking birds, so it's time to beat a hasty retreat.
No one can stand up to my vast multitude of fearsome feathers.
Spider-Man had him pinned to a wall. How'd he get loose? If he had some of his birds peck the webbing away, they'd have a mouthful of the stuff now, so their cries should sound more like...
The mayor has agreed to pay Spider-Man $2 million.
You mean the Vulture Man, Mr. Jameson?
Don't interrupt me, Parker. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. And he wants it in 2 $1 million bills, to be exact.
There has never been any such thing. But the mayor doesn't seem to know that, so he'll come up with some. I'm not asking how.
You just get yourself to the Empire State Building and get some pictures. They're sending a messenger to make the payoff on the observation tower.
The Empire State Building was the iconic symbol of New York. At the time, it was the tallest building in the world. It held that title until the early 1970s when the World Trade Center was built. Even then, the building held a special place in the national consciousness, which is why popular culture still used it to the exclusion of newer, taller buildings. Now, I do have a question for the Vulture. The wind gets pretty nasty up there towards the top. How does he propose to deal with it? Well, that's easy enough. We'll pretend it isn't there.
Ah, the money at last!
Ouch, that's a nasty sunburn you got there, friend. He shouldn't be working. He should be home taking a bath in aloe vera.
And my mother said I'd never amount to anything.
If he grew up with a mother like that, no wonder he's a little cuckoo. Cuckoo. It's a bird. He has wings. Oh, never mind.
Mister, can you spare a dime?
You again.
Who else? Now, if old Bird Brain will take the bait, I can try and bug his sonic signal.
He made sure the Vulture punched him in the other eye this time because he got tired of his face being asymmetrical.
At last, my supreme moment of triumph.
Now, if you'll just hold still long enough, I can sabotage his sonic signal.
And now for the happy ending.
He really thought that would do it. He dropped him from a great height once with the same result. And by the way, your money's getting away.
He was only making believe, and he's got my money.
If he thought Spider-Man was unconscious, why didn't he run him through with something or have his birds attack? Speaking of his birds, Spider-Man is still taunting him, and now he's angry enough to call them. also a him, and since Spider-Man sabotaged your controls, they can't tell the two of you apart.
Nah! The birds! The birds! They're trying to break into the office!
Mr. Jameson, what is it?
The birds! They're trying to get me!
Dude, switch to decaf and cut down on the donuts.
Relax, Mr. Jameson. It was only Spider-Man. He left his package and a note.
What does it say? I bet he wants more money. $2 million wasn't enough for that greedy...
The note says, please return to the rightful owners. Signed, courtesy of your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
That's the end of the episode. We don't get to see Jonah's reaction, but we don't need to. Spider-Man humiliated him again. He does that a lot since JJ brings a lot of it on himself, and he hasn't won one yet. If anybody's keeping score, they may need a life. I hope those don't come down near any. Come on, of newer, taller buildings. Sleepless. I can say that. $2 million does seem like a lot when your primary weapon